Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Voxcaster podcast. So, today we have a very special episode, as today is the intro to something very special that was thought of by our own Kim here over at LoonShrine Studios. And this is going to be a quick intro and synopsis from Kim about her idea that she wanted to present to the community, which is a book club idea that I will let Kim dive into and share with you guys where we see this going and Kim's starting point to how it got to where we are now. So, Kim, if you want to take it away.
Yeah, thank you, Max, first of all, for the great introduction. Really, this is going to be a super fast introduction to what we're deeming the Loon Shrine Book Club. But it's going to be a book club hosted by me, Loon Shrine Studios, or Kim, and it's going to be a part of the Voxcaster community network that we're starting. This is a space for all fans of Warhammer. It doesn't matter if you're Horus Heresy or Age of Sigmar or 40K. It's just for anyone who's interested in learning about the lore and reading books as well. The main goal here is really just to create a community where we read, react, and discuss the epic stories that are bound to happen in the books.
Yeah, and as somebody who is relatively new to the hobby, you kind of brought this idea forward to myself and Steve in you almost said like, guys, where do I start? And we were like, well, I mean, technically this is where you start, but you were almost because you had mentioned this and in your individual episode we go over this as well, where you brought up the fact that for new players it can be very overwhelming with just how much lore there is. I mean, we're talking like we're at 40 years of lore now, so it's almost you had came to us and said like, where do I begin, and like what's even a focal starting point? And that's when we kind of said, why don't you be the focal point where people can start? And I think that's where your idea, kind of like the seed, grew into what it is today, if I'm not mistaken.
No, 100%. That's literally spot on. It stemmed from hearing all of the stories, all of the lore from you, like telling me about them, and me sitting there being like, there's so much information, there's so much names, there's so much just like planets, just so much stuff to remember. And it was hard even begin to remember that without even having kind of like a base to start with.
Yep.
So that's why we're going to be starting with the Heresy series. We're going to be going in order. I know there's some people out there who that's their least favorite thing. We're going to be going in order. So starting with Horus Rising by Dan Abnett. And I apologize if I'm saying his name wrong. I'm probably the worst person with pronouncing names. But how it's going to work is each week we're going to be reading 2 chapters because we understand people have lives, people have families, people are trying to finish painting some models, perhaps. We're one of them. So it's just going to be 2 chapters a week. And the following episode, we're going to be discussing those chapters that we just read. So we're going to recap, we're going to discuss them, and we're going to go into like characters, we're going to go into the lore, we're going to go into maybe how things in the book are portrayed differently than some of the shows out there, or how characters and models are designed now. But there's going to be a Discord to discuss all of this that we will link down below, specifically for the book club, for anyone who wants to kind of discuss more, or even just looking for a fun community to talk with.
Yeah, and if we can just give a super quick, almost like backdrop to where you're starting. I know that, you've had little snippets from myself and Steve and through some of the YouTube channels and stuff like that of little bits of lore here and there. maybe you could give a general synopsis of where you currently are in your lore understanding. And I know there's a lot. This is a very open-ended question. So I'm just going to preface this with some like smaller questions. So it's not just an hour of you saying, well, I know this, but I kind of don't know this. So just to make it simpler for people, like, do you understand who and what the Primarchs are?
Yes, I do. So, in how I view them and how I understand it, they're basically like god figures in the lore. They're the sons of the emperor.
Yep.
They're kind of like they are what. Sorry, we're going to cut all of this when we edit it.
No, don't cut none of this. Like, let people know honestly, because I think a lot of people might think, oh well, because she's with Max and Steve, she has a lot of background knowledge. But the truth is, you really don't. You're almost coming at it with a blank slate, and I think there's a lot of power to that, though, because what generally tends to happen sometimes, not all the time, but people who are listeners, you'll understand what I'm saying. Is that sometimes when you're introduced to lore, because of the influences or people around you, they have a certain mindset of how
Hmm.
they view the lore. For example, there are a lot of people that think that the Imperium of Man is not the good guys. As a matter of fact, there are people that can argue that the only good guys in 40K are actually the Tau, which that in itself, that statement I said, I know there will be people DMing all of us saying, how dare you say this, Tau are evil and Tau should burn. And that's fine. That's your opinion. But my whole point is that Kim does not have any of these opinions. She is a complete blank slate right now. So the fact that, like, just, circling back to what you said there, where it's like, yes, you do understand that the Primarchs are the sons of the Emperor. They are kind of seen as these, like, demigod figures
Hmm.
because they literally have this, like, aura and this presence to, not all of them, most of them have this aura and this presence that you're almost drawn to them, like
Yeah.
fibers in your being literally pull towards them in a sense. Now, to give people a little bit more info as to where you're starting out, you did pick a few legions to start with that are kind of your favorites, and I would like you to not only open up about those, but is there something about, like, what was it that you maybe read in the lore or something you heard that, like, you were like, these are the legions I want to read about the most. I want to start from the very beginning. But you've almost mentioned that you're very excited to get to these legions, so you can really deep dive into them. Do you mind opening up about those legions and maybe why you chose those?
Yeah. So it's gonna sound odd, I guess, to say that Night Lords is one of the ones that I'm most excited to read about and learn about their lore. I know it's one of the darker armies, but as someone like I've always been more interested or more inclined to go towards like my favorite movies are the Jason Bourne series, for example. I think I've probably Matt Damon, if you're watching this, you owe me money because I've watched them probably over 5,000 times.
Yeah, if anybody knows Matt Damon and he wants to jump on an episode, tell him to visit the site.
Yeah, tell him he owes us one for how many times I streamed those. It was anyways, so I've always kind of been more inclined to like the grittier side, I guess.
Hmm.
And for Night Lords specifically, like the idea of okay, you're in war, your life is on the line. This could be the end of you at all, and you're going to let yourself be killed or let yourself die because of your morals, I suppose. I suppose. But just the idea of like when people are like pushed to the ultimate limits and put in situations like life or death situations, I think it's interesting to see how people survive and overcome that, even if it is on the darker, more grim torture side of it. It still is a population adapting and thriving. And Max and I have kind of talked about this. And I know that it's also a discussion like in the community itself. But is it really horrible, like are they worse than other legions or other armies just because they torture a few Or are the other armies worse because, okay, they don't torture people, but they kill thousands?
Yeah, so I think and this is a funny point you bring this up because this is something that's brought up a lot in contention with Night Lord specifically because, we do have this mixture of, yes, they had a very high compliance, one of the highest actually, but they did it through, hey, we're going to flay your top leaders, hang them publicly, and the rest of the planet will fall in line because the top guy is hanging right in front of you. He's got no skin on and he's tortured. Do you want to be next? No, I'll probably do what they say.
Yeah, no, definitely. If I were to walk up on a scene like that, first thing I'm thinking is, okay, what can I do to make sure the Night Lords never come after me the way that they came after that person? Like, I'm going to follow every rule, I'm going to do what they say to make sure I don't end up like that. But if they were bringing more benefits to the people that are following them, or I guess obeying them, I think we can all agree that would be better, but it wouldn't make, I guess, as good of a story.
Well, it's interesting because they kind of give this like almost twisted sense of judgment, right? Because it's like, yeah, in one sense, what they're doing is like literally war crimes, but on the other hand, they're actually killing the least to get the same results. So it's kind of like, like, are they really that bad? Because if you think about it, the alternative is we just kill half of this planet, and that's like millions of dead people versus a couple hundred. So I think with you having such a blank slate, when you come across some of these situations that happen in Horus Heresy, Night Lords are not the only ones who have very unique situations like that. A lot of these other legions, they were questioned a lot on their methods or tactics and things like that. And I think you being such a blank slate, somebody who's truly new, but somebody who has all this passion. I mean, you yourself have dived into a lot of lore videos now, and on the AOS side of things, you really got into the lore of like the Gloomspite and the Soulblight and the things that you have interest in. Is there anything in the Horus Heresy side of things that maybe you heard of, or maybe something that in passing or in conversation somebody mentioned and you were like, "Oh, I can't wait to get to that moment. It's like that's the moment I can't wait to get to."
I know well, okay, so first there's a couple.
Okay. No, no, but let's hear your like top three then. Let's break it down to like if you could pick three moments that you're the most excited for, what would they be?
Okay, so one of them would probably have to be the battle. You've told me about this, but the Battle of St. Gwinius
Mhm.
with Conrad,
Uh,
I think.
are you talking about the Lion versus Conrad?
Well, yes, sorry.
No, and that's
I always
hey, and
mix
that's
the 2
fine.
up.
Like, no, and that's okay
Signs
because
of a rookie.
again, you're new, you're the rookie. It's okay to make these mistakes. And for any listener, hey, I'm no lore master. I'm not here telling everybody the exact correct lore. It's like, and that's fine. Yeah. So the duel between Conrad and the Lion. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. That's oh yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah,
now
really
there now
interesting.
now there's a few, and it's funny because like the outlook that they each have kind of changes throughout because again, it's not like back after back, but like there's critical moments and events that happen between some of these fights. So their like approach is kind of different. So I am very excited for you to read over the Lion versus the Conrad stuff. Okay, so if that's number one, what are your other two?
My other one, I really want to see the battle, like the Imperial Fists,
Mhm.
kind of learn about how they were brought to basically like almost nothing and kind of getting more into the process of like getting the gene seed and repopulizing them, like almost like recreating them
Yep.
almost. Like I think that would be really interesting to get really into it.
Yeah, no, and sorry, I'm not sure if you mentioned this, but Imperial Fists are your second legion that you decided, like your Night Lords and your Imperial Fists. Yeah, so so the thing that you're mentioning about, I don't know actually, it doesn't, it's like weird because it doesn't happen like during the Horus Heresy, but technically it's in the Horus Heresy book series. Because when that happens is actually
Um,
like it's a time period called the Scouring, which is basically like Horus has now died and the traitors lost, and then they're falling back to the eye of to the sorry to the yeah to the eye of terror to try to get out of reality now because they're like, hey, we're being hunted by these loyalists, we got to leave because our general got killed. And what happens is then Perturabo, the Primarch of the Iron Warriors, and myself being a big Iron Warrior player, Perturabo sets up this whole, it's called the Iron Cage. So he baits Rogel Dorn and the Imperial
Right.
Fists to this specifically laid out trap. And that's the moment where we learn that the Imperial Fists, to my knowledge, were the only first founding legion made chapter that got reduced to zero. There was no one left, and they had to be rebuilt from the ground up from the gene stocks. But I think even the fact that you mentioned something like this, because not a lot of early people even know about this process. So the fact that you even know, hey, there's like gene stocks, and even if you're reduced to zero, if your gene stocks are still in good health, you can be like rebuilt and remade and stuff like that. So that in itself, like, I don't think if you realize, like, a lot of people don't grasp that concept for like a little bit. And no, and I know it sounds like weird because to you it may be like, oh my gosh, this is just like I was told about this right away. But it's again like not a lot of people realize this because very rarely does that actually have to happen. Not very many legions or chapters are ever
Right.
brought down to actually zero. So okay, but I really like how you've picked two events that are very different. You have one where
Mhm.
it's two Primarch battles, two Primarchs that are very different. You have one who's all about nobility, seen as the big brother, seen as like this like noble knight and very stoic in his manner, versus you have this crazed dude who it's Conrad, like
It's crazy.
he's literally crazy. But then
Yeah.
your other point is actually your Imperial Fists, and it's almost like the rebuilding of a legion. How does that actually happen? How do you go about doing something like this? Which is very interesting because it's very two different. So what is your third piece of lore that you're looking forward to the most then?
So this may surprise some people,
Mm,
but if you know Max, you know what his favorite armies are. You know what his favorite lore is. So one of the stories that I have heard that I am really interested in reading about is actually salamander based, believe it or not, about
okay.
Vulcan.
Okay.
I really want to read about again, I may get things wrong. I have to go look at my notes. It's
That's okay.
hard remembering everything. Like, this may sound like a funny thing to say for veterans in the hobby, but rookies or newcomers, if I have to give one tip, it would be to honestly write things down. As funny as that sounds, like
Yeah.
writing a list of being like, okay, Conrad is like the Primarch to Night Lords, and his second in command is Sanguinius, and then like going down and down. Like it actually helps.
No, and of course, and I think when because you're also somebody where like categorization to you is a big deal, like just because I personally know you on a personal level, categorization is a big thing for you. But I feel like a lot of people that get into this hobby and stuff like that, when you start to like get into it, like a lot of us, we categorize our bits and we like keep things pretty neat and tidy. For a lore base, there's no reason you can't do that for lore, right? I mean, I know you're somebody that you meticulously write notes when, at time of release of this video, we've had two guests on, and I mean, you were frantically taking notes during the guest because like you're somebody that like you're so passionate, you want to learn about it and everything. You don't want to miss these tips from literally Golden Demon finalists and stuff like this. So I think that's a great point actually that you bring up. Is anybody who's starting out, and if you are somebody who's starting out, maybe that's something that we present to the community, is that we have a like Google Doc or something where as we go through the lore with you, you add to this Google Doc of like keeping notes so everybody can kind of
Yes.
keep track of who's who. And there's so many characters that you will go through because obviously the Horus Heresy is a very tragic story. It's not very
Rip.
not a lot of yay we won happens in the Horus Heresy.
Boo, we died.
Yeah. No, it's actually funny that you bring up the salamanders because I know that you and I had talked about salamanders previously because you were also really big into salamanders. We just have this rule where, if one of us plays the Legion or chapter, the other one can't. But you did fall hard for Imperial Fists very quickly, actually. You were like, as soon as I think is when you saw their color scheme, you were like, I want them.
Yeah, I was sold.
But their lore is also very, very incredible. I mean, I'm very excited for you to dive into like Dorn and what makes Dorn versus Perturabo like very
Yes.
similar, but very, very different as well. It's almost like a lot of people say it's like, different sides of the same coin or different blade of the same, different edge of the
Mhm.
same blade or whatever. all these different sayings. But I think I'm very excited to see how you can finally take in like all these different Primarchs and what truly separates them, because they are truly so different, meanwhile being so similar to maybe one other. Like, when you compare stuff like you like Conrad, and Conrad with his, foresight ability, well, that's why him and Sanguinius can actually have a relationship, because they're the only two that have this. Who else can you talk to? Well, if he's the only guy who can do the same thing I do, I'm probably talking to this guy about the problems I'm having because he probably has the same ones, right?
Did we just become best friends?
Yeah, literally, right? Like it's that old meme.
They're in their room redecorating, moving around furniture. So
Yeah,
much room for activities.
right. But I did also, one thing that you mentioned in passing too was you really liked how the salamanders, how like they actually have a care for humanity, because that's a big thing for you. And you have brought up the fact that that has been something that you were very drawn to salamanders at first, was the fact that yes, they do have this almost like morality clause to them that other space marines just don't. And to you, that like on a personal level, you've mentioned that that's kind of a big thing, that that's how you would be. Do you ever feel like some of the things that you currently know about like the Night Lords or Imperial Fists would kind of be in line with you, like not the torture side of things, I hope not, but
Yeah, please, please, people, you don't have to call anyone. We're not.
yeah.
I don't torture. I don't do any of that. See, like Night Lords is hard because I don't know much more than just like the base level knowledge of, oh, we torture and we scare you into compliance, which is not like me whatsoever. But I will get back to you on the Night Lords. That is a good question, though. That's a good question for a follow up
Yeah.
LoonShrine episode. We'll bring Max back on to ask that question,
Yeah, just 2 seconds of me just asking.
and then we'll make him stay. He's got to read the books as well. No, for Imperial Fist, though, I think one thing that is kind of similar to myself, or kind of like drew me into them, was just like the loyalty aspect.
Yep. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, like I know they're not the ones to goof around, to like, they don't crack jokes, they don't crack smiles. If you see one smiling, you know something's wrong.
Yeah,
Turn
no, and
around, run the other way.
well, and I think, as like you progress into the book club, I'm almost excited to see if after you read the Primarch series, so as you go along the Horus Heresy, there is a portion of it that's called the Primarch series, which is just kind of covering the
Mm.
Primarchs, and there's exact Legion. I'm almost interested to see if Night Lords and Imperial Fist would still be your top two after you've gone over the Legion books and all the Primarch books. Maybe to see like, hey, yeah, maybe after, you really dive into Night Lords and Imperial Fist, you're like, well, actually, Imperial Fist isn't really, it is my cup of tea, but it's not the right flavor. And it's, suddenly you're an Iron Warrior player and everybody's happy because you actually chose the proper Legion. So we could also very well end up on that front where maybe you're going to look at it and say like, hey, yeah, like, like I really actually enjoy Conrad's foresight and I can see why it makes him a little crazy and a little, messed up. In the same front, I actually can respect Sanguinius more now because knowing he has this a similar power and the way he
Mhm.
chooses to act on it is very different than Conrad. Same ability, but different approach. So I'm curious to see if almost like how your mindset changes and your preferences change depending on how deep you get into the books now.
Yeah, no, I think it is going to happen. I hope it doesn't happen. I guess to the extent of making Night Lords and Imperial Fists lower down on my list, but I'm open to it. Like I said, like right now, all I know is basically base level knowledge of each army. So I kind of
Yeah.
just went off of first how they look, how I think I can paint them, and different things I can add to them, and then their story and lore second. So now that I've started on the painting, I can now start on the lore, going deeper into the lore side of it. But no, I think 100% things are gonna change, opinions are gonna change. Who knows? I might even be like, Conrad is the worst human or space marine ever, not human.
Well, and the one thing, and sorry to cut you off, the one thing about Conrad there, like it's funny you bring this up because this has already been actually mentioned to you by others in some of our calls that we've had already with other people, is I think the one question you've been getting a lot And I think one the question you're kind of excited to see, Conrad is not most people's favorite Night Lord. As a matter of
Not at
fact,
all.
the first captain is much more liked than Conrad. So I'm curious to see how you kind of either your love shifts towards Conrad more to Sevatar, or if you're like, no, I actually love Conrad more now because I understand him. I kind of get it.
Yeah, it could go either way.
Right? So
He could
I'm very excited to see how you kind of like take on that aspect of it, especially when you start to learn about some of these first captains. Because again, a lot of the first captains had very similar mindsets to their Primarch, but they were also one of the only things that could actually challenge them. And when they said like,
yeah.
this is the way it needs to be, their first captain may have been the only person in that room who could actually say no and actually have enough influence to change that final outcome.
Yeah, that's a big deal.
Not in every legion by far, as you will see, but for the majority of them, I'm curious to see whether, because there are people like that sometimes when you read about the first captain and all that stuff, you go like, whoa, this first captain's like, he's is what should be representing the legion, but obviously they're based off the gene seed of the Primarch. So it's
Yes.
sometimes this very interesting back and forth that you can have, especially when you get into like Death Guard lore, where the first captain and the Primarch like literally butt heads on how
Oh,
things should
Death
work, but they
Guard.
both just love the Legion. Truly, they just have a different perspective of how they see it. So, if is there any moment that so far that you've heard of, and you've kind of been like, like, yeah, I
Mm.
can see why this is hyped up, but you almost feel like it's too talked about, and other things are almost let down in other aspects because there's such a focal point on one thing.
Well, that is a really good question.
And I'm sorry, the reason I'm asking this question is because you got into Horus Heresy really big with the launch of Saturnine. You jumped straight into your Imperial Fists and stuff like that. Because one question you asked me right away was, when we saw the Saturnine launch trailer, the little video they put out, and you asked me, you said, hey, how come they're doing it on this planet? Like, what's so special about this? To which then I
Right.
had to explain, well, this is Istavan, and this is what Istavan is, and why it's such a focal point. Have you had any moments like that where you almost feel like the Istavan Dropside Massacre maybe almost takes away from the Siege of Terra? Or is it kind of like you're just an open book now and you're just excited?
Very good question. The wheels are turning away right now. Yeah, I would say that the Battle of Istavan or the Siege of Istavan does get pushed back a little bit. It may just be because I'm coming from a place of no previous knowledge. Like
Yep, yep.
it may be different for people who at least have played a little bit or maybe have even looked into Warhammer a little bit, but I come from like zero knowledge. So yeah, like the Battle of Istavan, like I didn't really like hear about it or learn about it until literally we saw a box set with like a picture of it. And I was like, "Oh, that's really cool."
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But yeah, other than that, I think everything is fairly well balanced. Like I will say though, it does seem like there are obviously favorite armies from Games Workshop, and it does kind of feel like at times that certain armies get better things or more focus on things, and not just in like model design and bits and pieces, but also just for like shows as well.
Mhm.
Because like we have Warhammer Plus, and there's a good amount of shows on like you'll see the salamanders in a lot of the shows, you'll see custodians, you'll see
Ultramarine.
Marines, but you don't really see a lot of like the smaller, less popular armies.
No, and that's a good point. So it'd be almost interesting, after you've read it, if you still have that type of idea. It's because like as people who know the lore, some of us know like some of these legions they just didn't have the numbers anymore. Like if you look at Raven Guard, Iron Hands, and Salamanders after the Dropsite Massacre, I mean Salamanders were like under 1,000 active Marines. Like it's like you had nobody.
Nothing.
Like you literally had nobody. So you didn't really have anybody to send in certain places versus when you look at like the number scales of like an ultramarines who are at like 200,000 legions versus salamanders under 1,000. It's a very different approach that you can have to warfare or battle in general, because how can I provide the same thing that they can provide? I got literally 100th of what they have. So I also think the very unique thing about this is not only do you get like cool little snippets like this, but I think it's your it'd be I'm very interested to see like your discovery, full discovery of
Mhm.
every legion. So you can actually truly understand, okay, Dark Angels, this is what they are, this is how they represent, this is how they do battle, this is why they were the first legion, why that's a big deal. And carrying on forward, I'd be very curious to almost do a follow-up episode with you maybe 6 months from now. And we do like instead of a weekly, hey, we're just weekly book club and stuff
Mhm.
like that, maybe instead we do a like follow-up episode where it's like, hey, you started at a blank slate and blah blah blah. What are your thoughts now almost? And if we almost did like maybe a quarterly or a biannual update from you, I feel like that could give people almost like a center point of like where we are now, how you're feeling, things that have maybe changed or progressed, or maybe even like, hey, you're like, you know what? Actually, after reading stuff, Night Lords aren't even one of my favorites, and actually, I like three more better. Hey, I'm not saying that's going to happen. I'm just saying, like, when I first got
Never.
I've had like a few of these different legions and stuff that I've been like, hey, these are pretty great, and then you get like 2 3 stories in, and you're like, oh man, what was I thinking?
Yeah, this is not what I expected.
Right. But is there any other plans or anything else that you would like to our listeners to know moving forward about this? One thing that I just want to quickly add is the fact that these are going to be weekly every single Wednesday, with the only caveat to that we have decided to do is that the first of every month, that Wednesday will be a 2-part Wednesday. The first 5 to 10 minutes will be a super quick work in progress update. That's just so you as the community know everything that we're working on behind the scenes. A lot of the projects and little things like that are actually handled by Kim on our end. So she is the one that can actually give the best update really out of the three of us. And
Fair.
then that will jump right into that weekly book club episode. And if you are just sticking around for the weekly update, there will also be a social media post that will go alongside it that will highlight everything as well. But we would love you guys to, join Kim on her journey and her discovering the lore and the things that we've been talking about for years. It's finally her stepping into it. And, again, I've brought this up in another episode. I'm almost excited for you to get to certain like lore bits so you can like just like be like, oh my gosh, I get it now. Like it's so cool.
So you're gonna be sitting in the corner just watching me read it, like, waiting for me to get to
Oh,
that line.
oh, I'll be like right outside your window, like, where you at?
What's
But
that
is there
word?
is there anything else or any other plans or anything that you would like our listeners to know moving forward, or any other behind the scenes things that you can talk about now?
Yeah, so again, I just want to repeat what Max just mentioned, saying that the Discord is going to be linked down below. We would really love for people to join, to jump on, and talk about. I guess it doesn't even have to be book club related. We just love hearing from the community. And then if you want to join the book club, you may have to uh, jetpack fast to your store, but I hopefully you have the horse rising, um, because this is gonna be the first one that we
It's upside
start
down.
with.
It's upside down.
This is gonna be the first one that we start with. This whole editing and social media thing is actually really hard.
We're not editing this out. We are leaving this in. I need people to know that this happened. That
Me
was
being the
so
editor
good.
right now.
That was so good.
Yeah, the editor better not take it out.
Yeah.
But no, we're gonna be starting off with the 2 chapters a week. If we find that that is either too much or too less, we'll go from there. We'll adjust. Again, we realize that people have lives and it can be difficult to actually sit down and focus on one thing at a time. But other than that, please join us next Wednesday for the LoonShrine Studios Book Club, the official first episode. In the meantime, though, please check out our next episode coming out this Saturday, October 11th. We have a special guest that I know you
Uh,
guys would.
First guest episode. We will be reveal. If you've been on our website by now, or if you've listened through the back channels and stuff like that, you kind of know who it is. We will be making an official post this Friday, which will be 2 days after this episode was live, with a full breakdown of who it is, their bio link, everything. That is how we do things here over on the Voxcaster podcast. And every episode that coincides with this book club, please, if you want to hop over to the Discord and continue a live chat with Kim, all throughout the day as people join in. Hey, just listen to book club. Love this perspective, love this idea. Have you heard about this, that? Kim will be the one who will be running that on her end. This is her baby, her idea, and this is something that she brought forward to the team that we absolutely loved. And we said this is a phenomenal idea. So if anybody has any other ideas or anything you wish to expand or add, please reach out to Kim right away, either through the Boxcaster podcast Instagram channel, either emailing us, or maybe you've already read some of the books or all of them and you wish to go back and restart just so you get somebody else's
Yeah.
perspective on it. Please, this is not you need to be a new person to join. This is everybody and anybody who wishes to join this little book club to help Kim along the way, get different perspective, just have cool chats about it. Maybe maybe your Conrad is the worst thing that ever happened in your existence of life. Now you want to, convince Kim, I, why, maybe Lorgar is better or something. Like, I don't know. There's some weird people. But anyways,
Wild take.
uh,
Controversial take.
yeah, right. But with that, we both want to thank everybody who listened in to this. Kim, thank you so much for joining in and giving us a breakdown of your idea and what the book club will entail. I'm really looking forward to it, as Steve and I will also be going alongside this, but this is being run, led, and the focal point of this will always be Kim. So from myself, from Max here over at the Boxcaster podcast, I do want to thank everybody for listening. I do want to thank everybody. We have been live for just under a week now. We've had such absolute positivity coming our way, and people just giving us, little tips, suggestions, writing in, and everything has been just so overwhelmingly positive. We just wanted to quickly say thank you to everybody for that as well. And hopefully, you guys keep listening along and liking, tagging, sharing everything with us. We've been absolutely loving the response so far. So thank you everybody once again. And if Kim, if you have anything else you want to finish on,
No, super excited to tune into the cosmos with you guys next time. Thank you for listening.
thank you everybody.
Bye.
Bye.